Tonight on Reporting Scotland, final preparations are underway on the eve of Pope Francis' funeral as people from all over Scotland and the world travel to Rome to pay their respects. Pope Francis died on Monday, aged 88. Among those making the journey is the First Minister John Swinney, as well as people like Tom, who says the Pope meant a lot to him.
I think the testimony of lots of young people, including myself, at the funeral is very important to show to the world that this is something that really means a lot to us.
And also coming up on tonight's programme. Police arrest and charge 8 more people aged 16 to 38 in an investigation into an ongoing gangland feud. A convicted murderer on the run from prison is back behind bars after being spotted on a bus in Edinburgh. Raymond McCourt was arrested by police this morning. And the Grand Dame hanging up her ballet shoes after a 72-year career.
And still to come in the sport, we hear from Hibs boss David Gray, who has been rewarded with a new deal as he continues to navigate an incredible unbeaten run.
Hello, I'm Graham Stewart. Welcome to Friday's programme. People from all across Scotland are travelling to Rome along with world leaders and royals ahead of tomorrow's funeral of Pope Francis, who died on Monday at the age of 88. The First Minister will be there. Also going is the Bishop of Paisley, John Keenan, who met the Pope several times. Gillian Sharp reports.
From around the world, people are gathering in St Peter's Square. 19-year-old Aidan travelled from East Kilbride and saw the Pope lying in state yesterday.
Oh, it was incredible. Everyone was going in and very respectful for the Pope to pay tribute to Pope Francis, and it was a fitting tribute to see it. I'm planning to meet up with a few friends who are also in Rome for the funeral, but it's going to be very busy. We're having to plan and get early to St Peter's Square and hope for the best.
Medical student Tom preparing to go out to Rome, keen to show young people are very much part of the story.
It's really Pope Francis is all I've known from a Catholic perspective, so I think the testimony of lots of young people, including myself, at the funeral is very important to show to the world that this is something that really means a lot to us.
The Pope was last seen in public on Easter Sunday to the joy of the crowds. Today, it's about thousands wanting to pay respects ahead of his funeral.
The atmosphere is what you could describe as hectic. The place is packed. To use a Scottish expression, it's heaving out there. The Italian government have put in place extraordinary security measures. The army are there, a number of volunteers are there. They're passing out water, for example. There's massive queues which are all contained.
The queue in St Peter's Square to see the Pope lying in state, filmed by Gail from Coatbridge, who'd flown in this morning.
As you come down the centre of St Peter's, it's lovely, it's quiet. Still with the hundreds of people, it's eerily quiet. And as you get to the front, there's lots of cardinals and archbishops and everything. They're all in beside the Holy Father at the front, praying, and the constant guard by the Swiss Guard. It's beautiful.
Bishop John Keenan preparing to visit Rome for the funeral.
Many want to be here, first of all, just to be here in Rome from where the Pope led the Church and led the world, to be close to him. See, so many have passed by his body, 100,000 I think now have passed by his body. Pope Francis made a connection.
The funeral of Pope Francis takes place tomorrow morning, a global religious event. Gillian Sharp, Reporting Scotland.
Well, reporter Rory McLennan is live in Rome for us. And Rory, I imagine that scene behind you will be packed tomorrow.
It will indeed. Over the last 3 days, during which Pope Francis's body has been lying in state at St Peter's Basilica just behind me here, over 250,000 people have come to pay their respects for the Pope, to pray for the Pope, and indeed to pray for the Catholic Church as she goes through this period without her Supreme Pontiff. Now, I've been struck over the last 3 or 4 days or so that I've been here about just how mixed and varied the sorts of people who have come to see the Pope's remains have been. We've had people come from all over the world, but many young people especially who were perhaps here for the canonisation ceremony of Blessed Carlo Acutis. Many have come from afar, from the other side of the world. Many Scots and Italians too, who are already gearing up for a busy week, with this being Liberation Day as well as being Eastertide as well. But we're expecting a similar number of around 250,000. The mood's been poignant, but it's been prayerful as well, Graham, and that's sort of the feeling that many here in Rome are going to be taking into the weekend for the Pope's funeral Mass here in front of St Peter's Basilica tomorrow.
Rory, thank you very much. Police have arrested and charged 8 more people, aged 16 to 38, in an investigation into an ongoing gangland feud. Since March, there have been a series of assaults, shootings and firebombing incidents in Glasgow and Edinburgh. A total of 20 people have now been arrested and face charges including attempted murder, fire-raising, firearms offences and road traffic offences. Katrina Renton reports.
Keep on running.
A homemade film with a provocative soundtrack in a seeming attempt to glamorise heinous attacks. It shows a house being set on fire linked to the Daniel family, who've been described in court as a serious and organised crime group. The home in Bishopbricks, north of Glasgow, was targeted at the same time as another home just streets away. The unrest began on the 2nd of March in Edinburgh after a car was set on fire. The feud spread to the west. Attacks carried on, with the last 2 on the 14th of April. In one of the incidents, a 72-year-old woman and a 12-year-old boy were assaulted at a house in Milton in North Glasgow. They were taken to hospital but have since been discharged. Police said today that this week alone they have arrested and charged 8 people, all male, aged between 16 and 38. The charges include attempted murder, culpable and reckless fire-raising, firearms offences and road traffic offences. This brings the number of those arrested now to 20.
There have been a number of arrests, particularly in the last few days, for some quite horrendous offences. In terms of how long this is going to go on, I'm not going to speculate on that. What I would like to say and reassure the public is that Police Scotland are absolutely committed to putting an end to this.
This is the biggest ongoing police investigation in Scotland at the moment. Amongst their activities, police are checking 3,000 hours of CCTV footage, 12 stolen vehicles have been recovered, around 2,000 moving vehicle checks have been made, and 350 addresses are being checked daily. Particularly concerning to police are the videos made by some of those involved in the attacks and the young ages of some of those arrested.
In terms of the young dynamic of that and certainly the glamorisation of it, it's probably something new that we haven't seen. It is concerning, but I want to reassure as well that actually these arrests will go some way in hopefully reassuring the public that we're taking this very seriously.
Police say information from the general public has helped lead to some of the arrests and continue to ask people with information to come forward. Katrina Renton, reporting Scotland.
A convicted murderer on the run from prison is back behind bars after being spotted on a bus in Edinburgh. Raymond McCourt was arrested by police this morning. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
The smartly dressed prisoner, who spent much of this week on the run, is back in custody after being spotted on the top deck of an Edinburgh bus. On Tuesday, Raymond McCourt was reported to have absconded from HMP Castle Huntly, the open prison near Dundee. The public were warned not to approach the man who was jailed for life more than 30 years ago.
Details of the incident are still sketchy, but just after 5:15, it's understood shots were fired during a hold-up in Kerr's Bakery in Main Street, Cambuslang, outside Glasgow.
McCourt had killed a newsagent, Khalid Mahmood, by shooting him in the face with a .44 Magnum handgun. As he tried to escape, he pointed the gun at a police officer, but a passerby, Moira Rooney, distracted him. McCourt shot her in the legs and the constable in the hand. Mrs Rooney and a baker who hit McCourt with a rolling pin were commended for their bravery. McCourt was released in 2015 but sent back to jail after stealing valuables from his partner to fund a trip to Blackpool. The passengers in the number 5 presumably had no idea a convicted murderer and fugitive was in their midst until Raymond McCourt got off the bus at this stop on the city's London Road and found himself surrounded by police officers. An eyewitness said he went quietly without offering any resistance. The police have thanked the public for their help in tracing him. David Cowan reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Edinburgh Council has suspended new council house lets to try and tackle the city's worsening housing emergency. The council has said it needs to take urgent action to meet unprecedented demand and to meet legal responsibilities. People who've spent years on the housing waiting list fear they'll be even worse off. Morag Kinneborough reports.
Edinburgh's housing emergency is escalating. There's rising demand, but fewer homes. The council had illegally housed over 1,000 people in unsuitable accommodation. Those places had to be removed. Now emergency measures have been approved. It's suspending new council lets in all but a few exceptions.
It's acutely serious. We do have to suspend in order to concentrate in bringing more properties into play for temporary accommodation needs, because it's not satisfactory that we're turning people away who are presenting as homeless. We've got statutory obligations to provide housing for people in those circumstances.
Trying to find suitable accommodation can be stressful, repeatedly applying for affordable lets week after week, made worse when the wait's extended.
I've even opted to go for 2 bedrooms and have 2 kids sharing, and then I'll sleep in the living room because it's the only options that I have, because I can't afford very many of the rent. So if there's no council properties for a decent rent that I can afford, then we'll be stuck in a place that I feel is unsafe.
So why can one housing officer tell me 2 years and then another one tell me 3 years? And she turned round and told me, well, it's because there's more people going into homeless. I'm like, yeah, I get that. It could be 3 years for they people that have no already been in homeless 2 years already. So why am I getting another year added on?
The housing emergency is also affecting rough sleepers. Numbers are up to almost double that recorded the previous winter. Campaigners argue the housing emergency is affecting many different people in different circumstances.
There are thousands of people in Edinburgh stuck in temporary accommodation, more than the whole of Wales. We've got increasing numbers of people who are being forced to sleep rough on the streets in the capital. These are the people that need protection, and I think the council is right to take this as an emergency measure to create a fix for that in the short term, but it can't be a long-term solution.
The council insists it's trying to prevent homelessness and build, buy or improve social housing, but these emergency measures look set to last for many months. Morag Kinneborough reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Some of today's other stories now. A lorry driver who killed a pregnant nurse in a motorway crash in Edinburgh has been jailed for almost 3 years. Trevor Norgate's vehicle drifted onto the hard shoulder of the M8 near Hermiston Gate, where 41-year-old Evelyn Brown had stopped her car. Miss Brown, who was 34 weeks pregnant, died from her injuries along with her unborn child. Members of a community group in St Andrews are a step closer to taking over a patch of land in the town against the landowner's consent. Scottish ministers decided last year to force the sale of the plot to Poets Nuke, who plan to transform it into a public garden dedicated to Mary Queen of Scots. Today, a judge refused the landowner's appeal against that decision. If the sale goes ahead, it would mark the first time private property was forcibly sold to a community group. Now, the former Hunterston B power station in North Ayrshire has been formally declared nuclear-free after 3 years of defuelling. The site generated its final power back in 2022, after 46 years of operation. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
The final shipment of spent nuclear fuel is carefully lowered after a 3-year programme to remove it all from this site. 4,880 elements, each having to be cleaned and packed away into one of these flasks. It was Fraser who had the honour of driving the shipment to the waiting train for its final journey to Sellafield in Cumbria.
My dad worked here, so it was kind of natural that it's somewhere that I wanted to work and kind of gain some skills and get to where I am today.
It's 3 years since Hunterston B generated its last electricity after 46 years of operation. But the job to decommission it is a long one, and defuelling is just one stage in that process for the first of the UK's advanced gas-cooled reactors to be retired. The man in charge says it's an exciting challenge.
We are not just a conventional plant to be decommissioned, we are a nuclear decommissioning site. We have some contaminated items and we need to work our way through carefully, removing them, cleaning them, packaging them, dispatching them.
While it was generating, every one of the spent fuel elements would pass through these cooling ponds for 3 months before being packaged up and sent on for permanent storage. Over the last 3 years, almost 5,000 of those elements have gone through the same process. Hunterston has long been a big employer in this part of North Ayrshire, and though it won't see out the career of the likes of Rachel, it's providing skills and experience.
All generations have worked here, you know, their grandparents built the station, their parents worked here, and now we've got people working here that are decommissioning it, and it's like the full life cycle of the station has seen the full life cycle of the local area.
Hunterston B will remain a fixture on this landscape for up to 90 years before it can be fully dismantled, but today marks another significant stage in its decommissioning journey. Kevin Keane reporting, Scotland, Hunterston.
OK, let's catch up with Louise Cowie, who's presenting tonight's News at 7. What is on show tonight?
I am indeed. Well, tonight we take a further look at that legal ruling you mentioned earlier, which could have huge implications for land ownership in Scotland. We hear more about the plot in St Andrews, which a landowner was forced to sell to a local community group. We'll hear from the sports historian who says he's found evidence of the world's oldest football pitch in Dumfries and Galloway. And there was a musical surprise for shoppers in Glasgow earlier as Amy McDonald did a pop-up gig in her hometown and told us all about her latest album and tour.
A pleasant surprise. Louise, thanks so much indeed for that. We look forward to that. Now, a ballerina who's become one of Scotland's longest-serving dance teachers is retiring at the age of 89. Sheena Goff, who's from Edinburgh, has attracted students from across the country and from all walks of life to her classes during her 70-year career. She studied alongside famous dancers such as Margot Fonteyn, but found her passion for teaching when she came home to Scotland to recover from an injury. Joanne Macaulay reports.
A Sunday ballet class in Edinburgh, the last led by Sheena Goff. The dance teacher is retiring after more than 70 years. As a teenage ballerina, she studied in London and Paris alongside famous principals like Margot Fonteyn. But an ankle injury proved the turning point as she came home to Scotland.
I went to my old school, Scottish Ballet School, to help to teach just for fun. And lo and behold, I discovered I was far happier teaching. It was what I really loved to do rather than performing.
Her teaching has attracted people from many walks of life, scientists and engineers, as well as professional performers.
I'm very critical. Got to be good, got to be right, blah, blah, blah.
And you're happy.
I like to be happy with their performance, but I wait to see.
Some students have been coming for decades. One made a 200-mile round trip every week just for her class.
I do the journey because Sheena's classes are inspirational. They're different from any other classes. It's a wonderful and exciting start.
I had done judo for most of my life, but upon moving back to Edinburgh 4 years ago, friends of mine encouraged me to go to Sheena's class because I enjoyed watching ballet. And I came along and it was life-changing, and it is now the main thing I do, and I have never looked back. It's been amazing.
She said it's better to retire before she's pushed, but already she's been persuaded to give private lessons to professionals this summer. Joanne Macaulay, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
And thanks to Sheena and her students for sharing their stories. Now, Ian, who you saw there in that piece, got in touch with us to tell us all about Sheena through Your Voice, Your BBC News. And we want to hear about the stories that are important to you too. And you can head to bbc.co.uk, Your Voice, or scan the QR code on your screen now to find out how to get in touch. Now, Lewis has tonight's sport and news of a certain manager who's hoping to get the job full-time.
Teed up perfectly, Graham. Absolutely that. Thanks very much. Hello there. Yes, interim head coach Barry Ferguson has vowed to make Rangers a better club if he is given the job on a permanent basis, and says he's not interested in managing anywhere else. The former Ibrox captain was handed the position until the end of the season, moving from his role as club ambassador. With takeover talks underway and a new sporting director arriving in the summer, a lot of changes are expected at the club, but Ferguson hopes he's not one of them.
If I get the job, I will make my club a better club. If I don't get the job, I'll still support my club. That's the way I'm looking at it. I've got 5 games to go. The final game's on the 17th of May. My focus is on this next few weeks. There's been a few bumps since I've come in. I knew that was going to be the case, but I wasn't frightened of that. But I know what this club needs.
Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers says they will not take their Premiership title triumph for granted if they get the point they need against Dundee United tomorrow. The champions are on the cusp of a 4th consecutive title and a 13th in 14 years. Rodgers says he knows they're in a golden era at the club, but says he never feels they are too far ahead. Now, David Gray says hard work has been the key to the turnaround in Hibernian's season, which has now resulted in the head coach being rewarded with a new contract at the club until 2028. In the space of 5 months, the 36-year-old has steered the Easter Road side from bottom of the table to 3rd place, 3 points clear of Dundee United and Aberdeen, who they visit tomorrow. Hibs are unbeaten in their last 17 league matches, which is a post-war club record.
If we keep winning games of football, nobody can catch us, and that is the mindset we're going into. It's going to be a real difficult game. It always is going up there. A real exciting one, which is why I think it's been put as one of the first ones straight away, first game after the split. And it's one that, as a neutral, everyone will be looking forward to it, and myself and the players have really felt it this week in training. It's a real it's excitement looking towards the future of the game.
Hibernian showed the respect for his work, and he got a new contract. He's deserved it and done really well. I think it's going to be a really intense game, a fast game, how both teams playing. But hopefully we can do the best performance and try to win the game.
Now to the other half of the table, and Hearts boss Neil Critchley says he's just thinking about winning against Dundee tomorrow and not about being dragged into a relegation battle. Hearts are just 6 points above the 11th placed Dens Park side, and after missing out on the top 6 and losing last week's Scottish Cup semi-final, Critchley admits they have to show fight and commitment in the final few games of the season.
Disappointment is part and parcel of football. Unless you're very fortunate, there'll be plenty more downs than there are ups, and you've got resilience as a key characteristic of any player or head coach, and you have to overcome disappointment. So that process has started this week. It'll continue tomorrow, and we have 5 points and 15 points to play for, and we want to try and win as many games as we can.
It could be a big night in the Championship as Falkirk look to close in on the title when they take on Partick Thistle. Jonathan Sutherland is at Firhill.
It had looked like Falkirk were strolling towards the Championship title, but they've stumbled in recent weeks. A 1-1 draw at Ayr United was followed last weekend by a 3-1 defeat against Raith Rovers. Manager John McGlynn admits there are nerves. He's hoping they won't be in too much evidence this evening against Partick Thistle.
There's always a little bit of anxiety. It would be, I don't think it would be a human being if he didn't have some kind of like little bit of nerves. I mean, it's got to be natural. Till you get over that line, but we've got loads of confidence. Team has been fantastic to be where they are.
Partick Thistle are desperately in need of points because they want to stay in the Premiership playoff places. And if Falkirk do stumble again this evening, it could open the door for second-placed Livingston. Their manager David Martindale will be a very keen viewer this evening.
I could sit here and give you a cliche, no, I'm busy, this. Of course, I'm 100% going to watch it, 100% want Partick Thistle to win. But I think it'll be a difficult game.
As always in the Championship, it's on a knife edge. Join us for Sports Scene 7:30 on BBC Scotland, on the iPlayer, and will also be live streamed on the BBC Sport website.
Could be a cracker, Graham. And before I go, I must mention the snooker, the World Championships. John Higgin is tied at 8 frames all with Zhao Guodong. The race to 13 frames will continue in the morning on the BBC Sport website.
Sounds like the Wizard of Wishaw had a good day.
Oh, yes.
Lewis, thanks so much indeed for that. Gillian is here with the weather forecast. Some wonderful weather in store for next week, although we do have the weekend to get through first.
Yes, that's right. A bit of a blip at the weekend, Graham. North East Scotland was best today in terms of sunshine. We've had a bit more cloud in the west thanks to a weather front. Couple of weather fronts in play over the weekend, but yes, warming up into next week. Good evening to you. Most parts saw some bright and sunny spells today, but for western coastal parts, we've had a lot of cloud. It's been increasing through the day, and we've had some patchy rain moving in as well, linked to a weather front which has just been hanging around through today. But for most parts, we've still been under the influence of this area of high pressure. So we've had lots of dry weather, best of the late sunshine hanging on in the east. But tonight that front does start to make inroads, so increasing cloud and showery outbreaks of rain moving into western and some central parts as well, with freshening winds along the west coast. But at least with all that going on, it's not a cold night. Temperatures holding up between 6 and 9 Celsius for most of us. So we start the weekend on rather a cloudy and a damp note, but the rain becoming a bit more sporadic through the morning and into the afternoon. So it's a slowly improving story tomorrow. By 4 o'clock for the Northern Isles, it's largely dry, still quite cloudy and breezy for Shetland. A few brighter breaks coming through for Orkney. For the Western Isles and the North West Highlands, some spells of afternoon sunshine, along with a few perhaps heavy showers. For eastern parts of the mainland, it's largely dry but cloudy. And across the west, we'll continue to see some showery outbreaks of rain with temperatures between 13 and 16 Celsius for most of us. And it will be breezy for the Isles and the west coast. So nothing too dramatic, weather-wise at least, for the Women's Six Nations match in Edinburgh tomorrow. By kick-off time, a few brighter breaks. Quite a lot of cloud, could be a shower or two, and temperature-wise around the 12 or 13 Celsius mark with mainly light wind. Now, tomorrow evening, there will be some late sunshine for western Scotland, and it's dry for a spell, but we have another weather front approaching, and that's going to bring outbreaks of rain into west and northwest Scotland. And that weather front sticks around on Sunday. It nudges northwards, so that rain will be most persistent and heavy at times for the Western Isles and the Northwest Highlands, while for southern, central, eastern Scotland, decent amount of dry weather, fair bit of cloud, and there will be a few showers around, but some brighter breaks to be had. Not bad temperature-wise, mid-teens for most of us, up to 18 Celsius in the best of the brightness in the northeast, and it will be quite breezy. And that southerly flow sticking with us into next week. We introduce really quite warm air off the continent. So for Monday, it's still a wee bit unsettled. We still have a weather front bringing rain in the northwest. Otherwise, it's dry but fairly cloudy. And by Wednesday, we could have highs of 24 Celsius, Graham.
I feel like saying, keep going, keep going. Gillian, thanks so much indeed for that. And now tonight's main news again. The First Minister, John Swinney, and the Bishop of Paisley, John Keenan, are among those travelling from Scotland to Rome ahead of tomorrow's funeral of Pope Francis. I'll be back with late news at 10:30 from all of us. Have a good evening. Bye-bye for now.